When their family faced a massive crisis, Emily and her parents were relocated to Oakhaven Farm, the most grueling and exhausting rural labor camp, which left her body riddled with injuries and illnesses. Yet, after her father was cleared of all charges and reinstated as a highly respected leader, her older sister, Sarah, suddenly became the person her parents felt they owed the most. "Sarah, it was all my fault for being so powerless back then," her father had pleaded. "I had to disown you just to protect you. Can you ever forgive me?" Her mother had chimed in. "Sarah, before we left, I didn't mean to say those heartless things. We were forced by the circumstances. Can you understand that?" As for Emily, during her 15 years in the countryside, she had long transformed from the sheltered, precious daughter of a military base commander into a weather-beaten rural woman. Even her fiancé, Michael, who had sworn before she left, "Emily, I will wait for you to come back and marry you," had shifted his affections toward her pale, beautiful, and educated older sister. "Emily, let's break off the engagement," Michael had told her. "I'm a college student, and you haven't even finished high school. We just aren't a good match." Turning around, he immediately begged her parents for permission to marry Sarah, who was also a college student, and they eagerly gave the couple their blessing. "Hey everyone, what if your family took your sacrifices for granted? Today we follow Emily. After dying from her family's abuse, she gets a second chance. Instead of revenge, she simply walks away to save herself. Let's dive in." At the wedding reception, Emily was seated in the most obscure corner, enduring the endless gossip all day long, until her sister came over and whispered the truth. "Emily, the truth is, I did receive the SOS letter when Dad was injured that year. And later on, I was the one who intentionally approached Michael to make him fall for me." Furious, Emily caused a massive scene at the reception, desperately telling her parents the truth, but no one believed her. Instead, her father ordered the guards to tie her up and lock her in the storage shed. "Emily, you are being incredibly unreasonable. Why would you cause such a scene at the wedding of your sister and Michael?" her father yelled. Her mother added, "Emily, you've disappointed me so much. A girl needs to have some self-respect, do you understand? Michael doesn't like you, so you had to break off the engagement. Your sister and he are perfectly meant for each other. You should be giving them your blessings. Do you understand?" Her older sister and her former fiancé became husband and wife, while Emily was left abandoned in the dark, cramped storage shed. To teach her a lesson, they adamantly refused to check on her for 7 days. Emily's body was already severely debilitated from her time at Oakhaven Farm. During her 7 days of confinement, receiving only a foul-smelling cup of water and a cold, moldy piece of bread each day, how could she possibly survive? On the afternoon of the 7th day, when the guards finally received the order to release her, they only found her dead, her lips bruised purple, having coughed up blood. When Emily opened her eyes again, she had returned to the time before her father was exiled. She saw her father once more, sharply dressed in his military uniform, and in high spirits, a man who had never joked around the house alongside her gentle, elegant mother. "What are you spacing out for?" her father asked. "Your mother has finished cooking. Hurry up and come eat." Her mother looked at her with concern. "Emily, you don't look so well. Are you feeling sick anywhere?" It took Emily a long time to pull her thoughts away from the agonizing pain of coughing up blood and the suffocating feeling of her lungs failing to draw in fresh air. She pursed her lips and shook her head, trying hard not to look directly at her parents. She was terrified she wouldn't be able to hide the deep-seated, bone-chilling hatred in her eyes. It was undeniably her who had gone through the most agonizing times with them. Why had they treated her like that? If she hadn't taken on the heavy labor at Oakhaven Farm, how could 2 elderly people have possibly persevered until the day their names were cleared? And what was the result? Someone like her, who had sacrificed everything for them, became nothing more than a stain they were eager to erase the moment they were vindicated. How could she not be filled with hatred? "Why are you only eating your rice and not touching the rest of the food? Is today's meal not to your liking?" her mother asked warmly, placing a piece of meat onto Emily's plate. Her voice was gentle. "You can't be such a picky eater. You're only 15 this year and still growing. You need to eat a bit more." "Okay," Emily replied softly, but she didn't look up, nor did she touch the food her mother had given her. Smack! In the quiet room, the sound of chopsticks slamming against the table echoed sharply. Emily's spine instantly trembled, her entire body freezing as she sat there, too terrified to move. However, her father didn't soften at her reaction. Instead, he loudly scolded her. "Other people don't even have enough to eat. You sit at home without a worry about food or clothing, and yet you're being a picky eater. Where on earth did you learn such a terrible habit? Eat it. If you don't finish your food, there will be no sleeping for you tonight." Her eyes naturally stung. Salty tears, like a faucet left open, streamed down endlessly, falling into her bowl of white rice. Although her mother spoiled her, She had never once interfered with her husband's way of disciplining their children. Seeing Emily's aggrieved state, she merely shot her father a glance from an angle Emily couldn't see, then advised, "Eat slowly, or you'll choke." Emily murmured in agreement, eating while crying, quickly finishing the salty, bitter-tasting bowl of rice. For the last bite of food, she gritted her teeth, shoved it into her mouth, and swallowed it whole without chewing. Setting down her bowl and chopsticks, she sat up straight and reported like a subordinate soldier, "Dad, I'm done eating. May I go back to my room to read now?" Her father maintained his stern expression, swallowing the food in his mouth before replying, "Yeah, go on." Emily stood up briskly and left without hesitation, returning to her room. From behind, she could faintly hear her mother complaining to her father. "Honestly, if she doesn't want to eat, just let it be. Why must you argue with a child?" Then came her father's stern voice, "We are a military family, and she is a soldier's daughter. How can she set an example of wasting the fruits of the people's labor? You're just too strict when she's still so young." The rest of their words faded away with Emily's quickening footsteps, no longer reaching her ears. She leaned her back against her bedroom door, panting heavily. After truly registering the feeling of being alive again, an endless wave of nausea hit her. Gag! Just as the food was about to come up, she quickly covered her mouth with her handshands that were not yet deformed and calloused. Years of living with a shortage of food and clothing had etched the need to cherish every grain of rice deep into her bones. Moreover, this was a psychological issue, not a physiological one. As long as she held it in, it would pass. Throwing it up would truly be a waste. Exhale. The hand covering her mouth dropped to her side. After letting out a long sigh, her small, pale face looked blankly up at the ceiling. Even now, she still couldn't understand why she had met such a tragic end in her past life. Tears silently fell from the corners of her eyes. Slowly sliding down the door, she sat on the cold concrete floor, buried her head in her knees, and sobbed quietly. It took a long time before she finally stopped. Wiping her tears away, Emily slowly pushed herself up on numb legs, limping over to the desk, and shakily picked up the desk calendar. Since she was a child, she had a habit of crossing off each day on the calendar as it passed. This proved convenient for her now, as she couldn't clearly remember the exact date and year. At the 26th of July, 1970. Very good. There was exactly 1 week left until her parents were exiled, and 4 days until they received the news. That was enough time for her to prepare. As for reading her books, her parents were about to be exiled. If she couldn't resolve this crisis, reading them would be useless anyway since she wouldn't have a chance to use the knowledge. There was no need to rush. Emily casually stuffed some books into her backpack, slung it over her shoulder, and walked out. "Mom, I'm going to look for Chloe to read together." "All right, come back early." Chloe was her classmate. Her house was close to Emily's, and the two of them got along well, so Emily often went over to hang out with her. Her mother knew this, so she was completely at ease. "Okay," Emily replied. One of Chloe's aunts worked at the neighborhood committee, and was in charge of sending educated youths down to the countryside. During this time, no one wanted to send their children to the rural areas, so carrying out her work had been extremely difficult. Emily had graduated from middle school and was eligible to go down to the countryside, so she planned to volunteer for it. "Emily, are you absolutely sure you want to volunteer to go to the countryside as an educated youth?" Chloe asked. "This is no joke. Once the paperwork is finalized, there's no turning back." "I'm sure. Right now is exactly when the country needs educated and capable young people like us to go to the countryside and build the nation. We should actively answer the country's call," Emily said. "Could you please put in a word with your aunt for me? I'm hoping to get the paperwork done within 3 days." "Emily, your civic awareness is always so high. Mentioning it to her is no problem at all. My aunt has actually been having a headache lately because she hasn't met the quota for educated youths, and the deadline to send them down is fast approaching. Since you are volunteering, forget about 3 days. She could probably get it done for you by tomorrow." "All right, thank you. Let's do tomorrow then." "There's one more thing I need your help with," Emily said as she opened her backpack, cautiously glancing around the door like a thief. She then pulled out a small packet of candy from the bottom of her bag, something she couldn't even bear to eat herself, and carefully placed it into Chloe's hands. "I hope you won't tell my parents about this. I want to give them a surprise. You know my dad is fiercely patriotic and loyal to the party. If he finds out his daughter has such a high level of political awareness, he'll definitely be thrilled." Chloe stared in surprise at the packet of candy in her hands. In this era of material scarcity, getting a hold of candy like this was truly no easy feat. With other siblings in her family, she had never experienced such luxury. She touched the packet over and over, unwrapped the paper, took out a single piece of candy, and hid it inside her shirt. She then reluctantly handed the rest back to Emily. "No problem. This is a small favor, just a quick word. You don't need to give me this much. 1 piece is enough. Emily smiled. Mentally, she was no longer a child under 16. She had long outgrown the age of craving candy. She decisively stuffed the packet of candy into Chloe's pocket, covering it so she couldn't take it back out, and feigned annoyance. If you still consider me a friend, take it. My older sister is already off to college, so I'm the only child left at home now. I have plenty, so don't be so polite with me. In reality, Chloe knew that Emily's situation was not nearly as good as she claimed. Emily's father cared deeply about his image and believed that military children should know how to endure hardship. This candy was something her mother had secretly bought for her, behind her father's back. Chloe looked at her for a long time. Once she was certain Emily wouldn't take the candy back, she reluctantly agreed. All right, then I'll hold on to it for you. Whenever you want to eat some, just come find me and get it. Emily shook her head. I know your younger siblings love to rummage through your things. If you don't want them reaping the benefits, you'd better eat it quickly. Emily and Chloe's circumstances were practically identical. Both were the overlooked children in their families. This was also one of the reasons they were such close friends. For Emily, it was because her older sister had been so outstanding since childhood that, in her parents' eyes, there was no room for anyone else. As for Chloe, being the eldest daughter in her family, the adults simply assumed she had to help look after her younger siblings and shoulder the household chores. The next morning, after finishing breakfast, Emily went to Chloe's house. Chloe was already waiting at the door. You're right on time. Let's head over there now. My aunt should already be at work. Okay. Stepping out of the residential compound and reaching a deserted stretch of the road, Chloe carefully took out the slightly melted piece of candy from her shirt. Here, for you. Emily accepted it. Seeing that Chloe had no intention of taking out any more candy and not rushing to put it into her own mouth, Emily asked, Just 1 piece? Where's yours? An awkward expression flashed across Chloe's face before she quickly forced a smile. I already ate mine. I brought this specifically for you. Emily could tell at a glance that she was lying. Without a word, she shoved the candy right into Chloe's mouth. I really did eat it, came the muffled voice from Chloe's mouth. She looked at her hands, seemingly debating whether to spit it out, watching to see if Emily would ask for it back. Emily put on a stern face and said, Don't you dare spit it out. I have no desire to eat your spit. After Chloe gave up on that idea, Emily pulled her hand up and rolled up her sleeve. Sure enough, she saw crisscrossing bruises. Emily knew this must have been from her mother hitting her with a feather duster. Her nose stung, and she almost burst into tears. I'm sorry. It's all my fault for not being thoughtful enough, which got you beaten, Emily said. Chloe quickly pressed Emily's hand down and pulled her sleeve back down, not wanting Emily to see it and feel heartbroken. Emily, it's not your fault. It's all because I didn't listen to you and hide the candy, so my younger brother and sister found it. Don't be sad. It doesn't hurt, really. I'm used to it. Emily recalled the things she had heard after her father was cleared of his charges in her previous life, and her heart tightened. Although Chloe had stayed in the city, her family didn't allow her to continue to high school, forcing her to go to work and earn money immediately. The very year before Emily and her parents returned, Chloe's younger brother wanted to get married. To gather money for the bride price, her family married Chloe off to a butcher. The butcher was a violent man who frequently beat his wife. Chloe was beaten by him until she miscarried at 6 months pregnant. By the time she was brought to the hospital, she didn't survive. Emily gripped Chloe's hand tightly and said in the most resolute tone she had ever used in her life, Chloe, come down to the countryside with me. We can ask your aunt to assign us to the same location. From now on, we'll be like real sisters. Chloe's eyes lit up for a moment but quickly dimmed. I can't. My parents would never agree. If I leave, my mom won't be able to handle all the chores, and there will be no one to watch my younger brother and sister. Emily held Chloe's face, making her look straight at her, and said, looking directly into her eyes, emphasizing every word, Chloe, you are just a child too. Not that much older than your brother and sister. Think about it at their age. Hadn't you already started washing your own clothes and helping your mom with whatever chores you could? Even without you, they are perfectly capable of taking care of themselves. You have to give them the chance to grow up, to give them a chance to help ease your mom's burden, just like you did. Or do you plan to raise them for the rest of your life? From being deep in thought, Chloe quickly shifted to continuous denial, shaking her head so fast it was almost a blur. No. I still have to get married and take care of my own family in the future. Aside from providing for my parents, how could I possibly raise my siblings for my whole life? After saying this, she guiltily glanced back at the road they had just walked down, seemingly afraid that someone else might have heard her words. Emily pressed down on her shoulder. Don't panic. I've been keeping an eye on our surroundings. There's no one around. As Chloe breathed a sigh of relief, Emily mercilessly punctured her beautiful illusion about the future. Chloe, unless you can stand up to your parents and make them treat you and your siblings equally in the future, what I just said will absolutely become a reality. No, it won't. My parents love me. My brother and sister are just too young, Chloe insisted. Emily didn't have the habit of forcing things on others, much less coercing her friends. People must always take responsibility for their own decisions. She couldn't change the fate of someone who didn't want to change. Intervening too much would ultimately only result in them not even being able to stay friends. Because they were relatives, Chloe led Emily directly to find her aunt. "Oh, isn't this little Chloe? Come here, come here. Find a seat anywhere. Don't be shy," her aunt greeted them. "No, Auntie. I came looking for you today because there's something I need your help with," Chloe said. "Huh? What is it?" "Why didn't your parents come?" Chloe stepped aside and pushed Emily forward in front of her aunt. "My classmate here just graduated from middle school and wants to go down to the countryside. Didn't you say not too long ago that you were short on educated youths? She's a perfect fit." As soon as her aunt heard this, she eagerly stood up. The distressed look on her face vanished in an instant, making her look several years younger. Come here. Take a seat. I'll go pour you a glass of water." "Let's talk about it slowly," her aunt said. Just as Chloe had found out, her aunt was indeed stressing over the shortage of educated youths going down to the countryside. The office was this empty, because everyone else had gone out to do mobilization work. Today happened to be her turn to man the office. While Emily was filling out the registration form, Chloe helped her bring up the need to keep it a secret. Her aunt hesitated a bit. "Child, what if your parents disagree when the time comes? Once this form of yours is submitted and the roster is finalized, it can't be changed anymore." Emily stopped writing, looked up, and gave a bright smile. "Don't worry, Auntie. My dad is a regimental commander in the military, and his political awareness is very high. Since I was little, he has taught me that a military child must love the country and have the spirit to strive for the interests of the nation and the people. As long as I report it, once he finds out, he will definitely feel proud of me. So what is there to hide? Then you should tell them early so they can prepare," her aunt reasoned. "Even though it's called going down to the countryside to receive re-education, they won't stop parents from preparing some extra supplies for their children just in case. After all, educated youths are ambitious young people who proactively volunteer for the countryside. They should be given preferential treatment. It's not like you committed a crime and are being exiled." Emily shook her head firmly. "Going up to the mountains and down to the countryside is responding to the nation's call. I'm going to receive re-education, not to enjoy a life of luxury. I don't need to prepare that much. I have faith that I can rely on myself to overcome everything." The aunt was extremely satisfied with Emily's answer and happily agreed. "All right, what a good child, truly worthy of being a military kid. Your parents will be proud of you." While Emily was packing her luggage in preparation for going to the countryside, an old comrade-in-arms of her father knocked on their door. "This is bad. You've been reported. The exile order will probably arrive in a few days." How could this happen? Her father escorted her panicking mother out of the room, staying inside alone to speak with his comrade. In the middle of the night, her mother came into Emily's room, holding her and crying late into the night. "Emily, what is our family going to do now? Your sister is still in college. I don't know if this will affect her, and you've only just graduated from middle school. Besides, there are no college entrance exams anymore, and your father went through a lot of trouble to secure your sister's college quota. Even if you went to high school, it would be useless." In her previous life, seeing her mother so heartbroken, Emily had considerately not brought up a single word about herself. Was this actually what her mother had been thinking all along? "With your father's rank, being exiled is definitely no small matter. We will undoubtedly be assigned to the most grueling place. What do we do? How are we going to survive?" Over the years, her mother had followed her father in the military and had never gone out to work a regular job. Aside from light household chores and the education of her two daughters, she hadn't had to worry about anything else. Having lived a life of leisure for so many years, she was starting to fear the future. "Emily, why did this have to happen to our family? Your father dedicated his whole life to the country. How could they do this?" Sob. "Last year, when our neighbors, the Smiths, were exiled, I heard they had to wake up before dawn every day to work. What am I going to do from now on?" Emily had already heard these words once in her previous life, yet hearing them again still made her heart ache. In her past life, she had worried that her parents were too old to survive this turbulent period. In this life, however, she only wanted to live for herself. All she was thinking about was how to make them happily let her go to the countryside. After all, she refused to be a fool for 2 lifetimes. She and her sister were both their children. On what grounds did they only think of her sister? Emily didn't comfort her mother. She simply let her mother hug her, talking about her fears, crying about the hardships of being exiled, and wiping all her tears and snot on Emily's shirt. "Everyone come out, we need to have a meeting," her father said, knocking on Emily's door after seeing his comrade out. Emily shook her mother, who had cried herself to sleep, to wake her up. "Mom, Dad said we need to go out for a meeting," Emily said, waking her mother. For the first time, the entire family sat fully assembled in the main living room at midnight. The main room was drafty, and the cold night wind blowing against her made Emily's heart sink. "Regarding my situation, tomorrow I will try to call in some favors to fight for one last chance," her father began. His opening remarks were exactly the same as in her previous life, but her state of mind was entirely different. In her past life, her admiration and respect for her father's identity as a soldier had shattered long ago, right after he was cleared of his charges and began treating her and her older sister so differently. With the memories of a past life, she understood perfectly well that this exile was inevitable. Calling in favors would be completely useless. The only reason he would be exonerated later was due to a change in policy, plus the fact that he was still alive and eventually received help from his former superiors. Emily lowered her head to look at the table, pretending to listen attentively so he wouldn't see the complex, unfathomable emotions deep in her eyes. "Right now, the issue is about you and your sister," he continued. "Your sister is currently in college. If she drops out halfway, our family will lose our last chance to ever get back on our feet. Therefore, I have decided to publish a statement in the newspaper, disowning her. That way my situation won't affect her anymore." Her mother chimed in, "That's right. Sarah is currently the one with the most hope of turning our family's situation around. We cannot drag her down." Her father looked straight at Emily. "Emily." Emily looked up to face him, deliberately gathering tears in her eyes. She pouted with a heartbroken look. "Dad." Her father's resolute and stern expression wavered for a brief moment, but quickly returned to normal. "Your mother and I are getting older. We don't want to end up sick or having something happen to us in the future without any of our children by our side. You've already graduated from middle school. If this exile becomes a done deal, I will request for you to go with us." Her mother's weak, tearful voice rang out. "Honey, is that really a good idea? Emily isn't even 16 yet. She won't be able to endure the exile with us." Despite her saying that, Emily could clearly see the anticipation in her mother's eyes. In her previous life, precisely because she had seen her mother's anticipation, coupled with the two of them deliberately playing good cop bad cop, how could a child like her possibly refuse? But now, the Emily standing in front of them was no longer that underage girl who depended on her parents, and the ones who had destroyed all of that were none other than them. Emily blinked, and the glistening tears in her eyes fell like pearls from a broken string, rolling down from the corners of her eyes, trailing past her freezing cheeks, and finally dropping from her chin. In her past life, thanks to her older sister's dedicated teaching, after they returned to the city, Emily completely understood how to cry in a way that would evoke her parents' pity. She knew exactly what angle to hold her face under the overhead light, and how the tears rolling down her cheeks would reflect the light into the eyes of those around her, maximizing their compassion. "Mom, Dad," Emily sobbed. She clearly saw her father's expression waver for a moment, but it very quickly turned resolute again. "Exactly because she is young and a girl, how can I feel at ease leaving her outside all alone?" her father said. "Emily, you are a military child. You must have the political awareness of a soldier and not be afraid of hardship or fatigue. Do you understand?" Haha. It was the first time she realized that her father's teachings were actually so hypocritical. This kind of absurd reasoning could only fool a naive, inexperienced child like she once was. If he was talking about enduring hardship and fatigue, why didn't they let her older sister go into exile with them? Was her older sister not a military child too? Why could they, on the pretext of being old, demand that she follow them to endure hardship on their behalf, all while using the excuse that she was too young and they were worried about her? They reaped all the moral credit, yet acted with utter selfishness. Was she supposed to endure the hardship and exhaustion in their place? Or was it simply that they didn't love her? Her heart grew even more resolute, but she cried even harder. "What are you crying for?" her father scolded. "Your sister isn't like you. She's been obedient and sensible since she was little. If you were even half as obedient as your sister, your mother and I would worry a lot less. She just hasn't thought it through yet." "Stop scolding her," her mother intervened. "Be a good girl, Emily. You know Mom loves you the most. Just come with us, and we will protect you." Having already lived through it once, Emily didn't believe a single word. She didn't argue with her parents. She just kept crying. Returning to her room and closing the door, she threw herself onto the bed and fell asleep. She had a fierce battle to fight tomorrow. In her dream, she returned to the time they first arrived at the farm. Under the guise of character building, her father forced her to split his assigned workload so her mother could live peacefully under their wings. But he was a regimental commander who had spent half his life on the battlefield, while she was a girl not even 16 who had never received any professional training. How could they possibly compare? Usually, by the time her father finished his share, she still had a lot of work left undone. He wouldn't help her. He would just stand by and watch, supervising her until she finished. When she got home late, she would be nagged by her mother and endure a scolding from her father. It's all because you've been spoiled. It takes you forever to finish such a small task. At this point, her mother would act as if she had amnesia, completely ignoring the fact that Emily was a minor, and would join her father in reprimanding her. Emily, the farm isn't like the military base. You need to learn to adapt and not be afraid of hardship. You need to learn from your sister. She has never complained. Of course she wouldn't complain, because Sarah had never experienced any of what Emily was going through. But Emily knew speaking up was useless. It would only invite more reprimands. She was already so tired. Not long after, her father was injured. The farm lacked medical resources, and it was never their turn to receive any. She sent letter after letter, hoping her sister, who was very successful at the time, would help find a solution, but there was never a single reply. Emily had no choice but to shoulder the majority of the farm work while her mother cried. Using the small amount of antibiotics Emily had begged for by kowtowing until her forehead bled to treat her father's wound. In a short period, she was forced to grow up, rapidly becoming the pillar of the family, collapsing from exhaustion several times. The farm manager, afraid that a death would be hard to explain, and taking pity on her filial piety, agreed to invite a barefoot doctor to treat her father. However, as soon as her father woke up, the first thing he did was give her a slap across the face. He was a soldier. Even though he had just woken up and was weak, her face remained swollen for 3 days. You brat! Who allowed you to write letters to your sister? Are you afraid of hardship, so you want to drag your sister down with you? Furthermore, don't you know your mother is in poor health? How could you have the heart to let her do so much work? So unfilial. Huh. It turned out he knew perfectly well that following him meant coming to suffer and endure punishment. Emily looked at her mother in pain. Mom, haven't I done much more work than you? Shouldn't we face difficulties together? What she got in return was a second slap from her father. You heartless animal! Is this how I raised you? Don't you see that your mother's hands are all scratched and bleeding? Her health has always been poor. What if something happens to her? How could you ever make it up to us? After that, whenever he was conscious, she never tended to his wounds again. She left her mother to brew his medicine and change his bandages. Every day, as soon as she finished her share of the work, she would go home. She ignored the fact that the farm management came to their door to reprimand her mother for not working. Her father, the devoted husband, forced himself to go to work, not wanting his wife to suffer, until he collapsed and was carried back. Only then did he stop. After that, her mother worked every day, but she became much colder toward Emily. Once her father recovered, they returned to the dynamic they had when they first arrived at the farm. Waking up from the dream, Emily felt that sleeping was worse than not sleeping. She was even more exhausted. While they were eating breakfast, Chloe's aunt came to the door. Commander Lee, I am here to inform you that your daughter has been selected to go down to the countryside this round. She departs in 2 days. You have raised a fine daughter. What? Her father's expression and tone were truly awful, terrifying Chloe's aunt so much that her face stiffened, and she unconsciously took a few steps back before she could stop herself. Why? Are you not happy? A child responding to the national policy with such high political awareness is a good child. If you don't support it, do you feel there is a problem with the national policy? Her father was at a sensitive time and would absolutely not allow such a dangerous accusation to be pinned on him. He quickly retracted his terrifying aura. His voice, unclear whether gentle or stern, carried a strange awkwardness. No, it's not that. A child having such political awareness is a good thing. I couldn't be happier. Why would I feel it's not good? Chloe's aunt only then broke into a smile. That's more like it. You've taught this child really well. Knowing that many people nowadays don't understand the policy, she took the initiative to come and coordinate with us a few days ago. Her father's expression started to look awful again. Her mother also looked at Emily with an accusing gaze. Emily quickly stood up and walked over to Chloe's aunt. Auntie, besides informing us of the departure time, is there anything else you came for today? Seeing Emily's gaze land on the bag in her hand, the aunt suddenly realized, oh, right. The child is about to go to the countryside, so the parents need to sign a form. Saying that, she took the documents out of her bag and got a pen ready. Commander Lee, take a look, and if there are no issues, please sign. Her father stared at the paper for a long time, stubbornly refusing to sign. Chloe's aunt urged him a few times, while her mother chimed in. There's no rush. When it comes to our children, we need to be careful. As her father's brows knitted tighter, Emily took the initiative to speak up. Dad, didn't you say last night that you had important business to attend to today? It's getting late. Her father looked deeply at her with a probing gaze. When did you decide this? Why didn't you give us any prior notice? Emily didn't even need to open her mouth for this question. Chloe's aunt answered for her. The child came to me 4 days ago, saying she wanted to wait until the paperwork was done to give you two a surprise. Commander Lee, you are truly capable. I didn't expect the child you raised to have such high awareness. It's truly worth celebrating. If these words had been said before last night, her father would have undoubtedly been overjoyed. But now, under her mother's tearful gaze and Chloe's aunt's look that implied not signing means you lack awareness and doubt the policy, he signed his name with rigid, forceful strokes. It's signed. We need to speak with her privately. We won't see you out, he said. Chloe's aunt looked at her father, then at Emily, and said with concern, Commander Lee, you are a prominent figure in the military. Your political awareness is higher than mine. You surely won't hit the child, right? Her father's face darkened. When did I say I was going to hit her? You look like you want to hit her, Chloe's aunt retorted. If I didn't even have this little bit of observation skill, how could I work at the neighborhood committee? Emily stopped Chloe's aunt in time before she could say more. Auntie, don't worry. In 2 days, I will definitely arrive at the assembly point on time. You can head back first. If I don't show up, you can go straight to the military base and find my dad's superiors. Emily saw out the beaming aunt. Her father didn't expect her to say that. He stared at her back, his face as black as ink. The very moment Chloe's aunt stepped out the door, her mother completely lost her composure, tears streaming down. Emily, explain yourself clearly. Why did you suddenly sign up to go down to the countryside as an educated youth? Did you know in advance that our family was about to face trouble? Emily found it laughable. A military regimental commander, even a commander like him, had only found out about the situation yesterday. How could a powerless young girl like her possibly know beforehand? Dad, you heard it too. I signed up 4 days ago, Emily said. I truly want to respond to the national policy, to bring glory to you, Mom, and our family. Her words were full of sincerity, but her parents didn't believe a single syllable. Her mother grabbed her arm, crying. But why is it such a coincidence? Emily, tell Mom the truth. Is it because you don't want to go into exile and suffer with us that you deliberately did this? Don't worry, Mom and Dad aren't dictatorial parents. Just tell the truth. We definitely won't blame you. Emily suddenly realized that in her past life, she had been blinded by familial love, completely ignoring far too many things. For instance, her mother and her older sister, Sarah, were actually very similar. Every word they said sounded like they were thinking of her, but every single word was actually digging a hole for her to fall into. Sure enough, the next second, her father's furious shout rang out from ahead. Emily, you're rebelling! We are your parents. We raised you, yet just to escape us, you would even secretly sign up to go to the countryside. Do you have any conscience at all? Emily didn't discuss feelings with them. She simply kept repeating that educated youths going down to the countryside was a response to the national policy. Finally, she countered. So, Mom and Dad, do you really feel there's a problem with the national policy? If you think what I said wasn't accurate enough, I can go call the auntie from earlier back to explain it to you one more time. This directly choked them off, rendering them entirely speechless. Humph, just wait until I get back to settle the score with you, her father sneered. Emily followed right after her father. I hope you can treat me and my sister fairly. Otherwise, if I can't go to the countryside, I'm afraid people will suspect that you are doubting the national policy and deliberately trying to stop me from going. If word gets out, I'm afraid it won't be good for your reputation. Even though they were facing exile, there was still a lot of room to maneuver regarding the assigned location. A slightly better reputation and a bit more cooperation meant the place they were sent to could be slightly better. Her father scoffed, his footsteps rushing away. Emily was in no mood to go back and listen to her mother cry, so she decisively went to Chloe's house to hang out. She advised Chloe for a while longer. Chloe was still hesitant, and when it came to actually signing up, she resolutely refused. Emily then told Chloe the exact location she was going to in the countryside. If you feel wronged, write a letter to me. If you can't stand it anymore, just sign up to go to the countryside like I did. Trust me, if you can't change your current situation, going to the countryside is your only way out right now. In an era before reforms and open policies, traveling anywhere casually required a letter of introduction. Without relying on national policies, How could a little girl like Chloe possibly escape her suffocating household? I'll remember, Chloe said. If you lack anything in the countryside or feel wronged, you can write to me too. It's a deal. Emily and Chloe hooked their pinky fingers and stamped their thumbs, just like they had done countless times when they were little. After staying at Chloe's house for nearly an hour, Emily said her goodbyes and left. Having the memories of her past life, Emily knew exactly which newspaper office her father had gone to. When she arrived, she just happened to see her father's military vehicle driving away. She went inside and immediately stated her identity. I am Commander Lee's daughter, the one who just asked you to publish an article. My name is Emily. My dad told me to come and revise the piece that's about to be published. But Commander Lee just left. How do I know you're not a scammer? The staff member asked. Since she wasn't lying anyway, there were plenty of ways for Emily to make him believe her. Before lunch, she smoothly revised the disownment statement her father was about to publish, changing it to simultaneously disown both her and her older sister, Sarah. By the time her father saw it, it would be too late. He would have no choice but to let her follow the unit down to the countryside and leave this place. Because she had proactively requested to go down to the countryside, when the locations were assigned, her father's incident hadn't happened yet, so the place Emily was sent to was a rather prosperous area where the villagers were easy to get along with. After 2 years at the educated youth settlement, at almost the exact same time as in her previous life, she received news that her father had been injured. Since they had publicly severed ties, the labor camp where her parents were exiled naturally wouldn't take the initiative to send news to her. Emily had no idea what methods or connections her mother had used to send her 3 letters in a row. Emily immediately turned the letters in to the authorities. Comrade Lee and his wife published a statement in the newspaper, disowning me 2 years ago. I have no idea how these letters made it here, she explained. Although some people called her cold-blooded and heartless behind her back, the majority approved of her actions. Anyone with a bit of common sense knew perfectly well that her parents had been exiled for political mistakes. Even if she had wanted to do something, even top city officials wouldn't dare to intervene, so what could a mere educated youth like her possibly do? Following this incident, some people distanced themselves from her, while others drew closer. Emily found this to be a good thing. She didn't need friends who disapproved of her choices. Having the experience of an extra lifetime, Emily proved to be much better at enduring hardship during her 2 years in the countryside than the other educated youths. Prolonged illness makes one a doctor. In her previous life, while caring for her father, she had picked up some basic medical knowledge from a barefoot doctor. Over time, the village doctor realized she understood some medical theory, so he let her help out at the clinic and even allowed her to read his precious medical books. Initially, she had to finish her farm work before she could go over. Later, acknowledging her medical skills, the barefoot doctor negotiated with the village committee to let her officially work at the village clinic and earn work points for it. The letters from her mother had arrived not long after she started at the clinic. The village was poor, medical resources were scarce, and doctors were in even shorter supply. The village leaders absolutely refused to let a hard-won, trained doctor be ruined. After Emily turned in the letters, they promptly reported the matter to their superiors, completely clearing her of any association with the incident. During her 2nd year as the village's barefoot doctor, a recommendation slot for the Worker-Peasant Soldier University opened up. The village chief called her to his house for a private talk. I heard you've completely cut ties with your family. What are your plans for the future? He asked. Emily had already heard rumors, and naturally connected his question to the university recommendation. She thought for a moment. It had been over 3 years since she first arrived in the countryside, and it would be another 4 years or so before the national college entrance exams were reinstated. Besides, she had no intention of returning to the city anyway. There was no one and nothing left there worth missing. She might as well go with the flow and accept the offer, saving herself the trouble of taking the exams later. As long as the village still needs me, I won't leave until we've trained an even better successor to take my place, she replied. This clearly showed her intention to treat the village as her home, which greatly satisfied the village chief. Mainly, the village didn't have any local youths who met the qualifications. Otherwise, they would never have handed such a great opportunity to an educated youth. Not long after, thanks to the village's recommendation, Emily went to the Worker-Peasant Soldier University to study medicine, completing a straight 3.5-year program. After graduating, she kept her promise and returned to the village. There, she reunited with Chloe, who had been sent down to the countryside half a year prior. They were both overjoyed. It only took a few words to completely melt away the distance that had built up over their years apart. Chloe had grown even more beautiful, though braving the wind and sun in the countryside had tanned her significantly, making her look even tougher than Emily. Returning to the educated youth settlement together, they put away their belongings, and chatted about their experiences over the past few years while preparing a meal. My parents wanted to marry me off to a butcher just to get the bride price for my younger brother's wedding, Chloe explained. So I went and begged my aunt to assign me to the educated youth brigade. You did exactly the right thing, Emily assured her. Don't worry. As long as we have reason on our side, we can go anywhere in the world. No one will ever take advantage of you again. Now that Emily was back, she immediately urged Chloe to pick up her old textbooks and start studying again. Emily even bought her high school study materials. Who knows? What if the country reinstates the college entrance exams? Just study. It won't do you any harm. Chloe didn't quite understand, but because Emily told her to, she obediently studied. After Chloe had been studying for half a year, the country indeed reinstated the college entrance exams. She registered but failed her first attempt. However, with Emily's encouragement, she continued to review and prepare to fight again. After failing twice, she finally passed and got into college. Whether she was influenced by Emily or not, Chloe also chose to major in medicine. But since she had relied on her own abilities to pass the exam, the university she attended was even better than the one Emily had gone to. The year Emily finally trained a successor who was more outstanding than herself, Chloe also graduated. She gave up the opportunity to enter a large hospital and proactively requested to be assigned to the county hospital closest to Emily. Emily, on the other hand, found living in the village quite comfortable, so she politely declined Chloe's suggestion to go work at the county hospital. Instead, she used the money she had saved over the years to apply for a residential plot in the village, preparing to officially settle down there. In 1985, the year Emily had died in her previous life, which was also the year her parents were cleared of their charges and had doted on her older sister endlessly, two uninvited guests appeared in the village. It was her older sister, who in her previous life had been radiant and lived like a princess, and Michael, Emily's former fiancé, who in the previous life had been noble and elegant. Emily stared clearly at the man and woman standing at the entrance of the village. Their faces were grimy, their skin dark, and they looked even more unkempt than the local villagers. For a moment, she was slightly dazed. As soon as her sister saw her, she became incredibly agitated. Emily, Mom and Dad are both dead. It shouldn't have been like this. Why didn't you go into exile with Mom and Dad that year? If you had gone with them, I would now be the daughter of a military commander, a highly respected young lady admired by everyone. Why is everything so different? Emily was slightly stunned and didn't dodge her sister's clawing fingernails. The exposed skin on her hands, neck, and face were all scratched. It seemed her sister had also awakened to the memories of her previous life. Sarah, calm down a bit. Didn't we come to find Emily to discuss clearing Dad's name? Michael intervened. I'm sorry, Emily. Sarah is just agitated. She has suffered a lot of shocks at the farm over the years, so her emotions are a bit hard to control. Through Michael's words, Emily learned about the experiences her sister and he had gone through over the past few years. That year, when Emily handed in the letters, her sister, along with their parents, were naturally investigated. The undestroyed letters were found at her sister's residence. Consequently, Sarah was sent to the labor farm with their parents and couldn't even get her college degree. When Michael heard the news, he defied his family's objections, gave up his studies, abandoned his family, and disregarded everything to go to the labor farm with her sister. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, Emily realized that Michael had actually changed his heart so early on. However, in their second year at the farm, her father still passed away due to an infected wound. Unable to bear the massive disparity in their living conditions after his death, coupled with the grueling farm work, her mother committed suicide 3 months after her father died. Hearing the news of her parents' deaths, Emily didn't invite them to sit inside her small courtyard. She simply said directly, "They are already dead. What's the use of clearing his name? As you can see, I am just an ordinary rural barefoot doctor. I don't have the capability to help clear the name of a military regimental commander. You've found the wrong person." Although Michael held her sister back from going completely crazy, the way he looked at Emily was full of extreme disappointment. "Emily, you've changed. You never used to be such a selfish and cold person. That warm-hearted, kind, and wholly sincere person had long been killed by all of them together in her previous life." Emily owed nothing to anyone, not even to her parents. Don't think she didn't know what they were trying to do. Didn't they just want the compensation for the years of exile and the glorious status of being a commander's daughter? The glorious status of being a commander's daughter? They wanted her to put in all the effort, yet they couldn't even speak a single word of truth to her. Even if her head had been flooded with 10 pounds of seawater, she still wouldn't have been stupid enough to agree. She simply turned her head and walked away. That evening, the villagers brought her older sister, who had been left behind all alone, and looked utterly deranged, the gate of Emily's small courtyard. Emily refused to let Sarah inside. She merely said indifferently, "Call the police. She is already married, and it is illegal for a husband to abandon his mentally ill wife." After Michael was penalized by the authorities, he had no choice but to hold his nose and take Sarah back home. A year later, Michael appeared at her door again. "Emily, your sister is dead." Emily was only slightly taken aback, feeling absolutely no trace of sorrow. Oh. The last time her sister had visited, Emily had already noticed that aside from her mental instability, Sarah's physical health was also in critical condition. Though she was only in her early 30s, what should have been the prime of her life, her face had already shown the unmistakable signs of a lamp running out of oil. Michael was the same. His constitution was just slightly better, making him look a bit healthier, but it was clear he only had a few years left as well. "She was your last relative in this world," Michael pressed. Emily ignored him, turning around to walk away. "Emily," he called out, "if I had kept my promise and waited for you to come back that year, could we have been happy together? Emily, I heard you're still unmarried. Do we still have a chance?" Emily paused in her tracks. "Michael, people must always look forward. Don't look back, because there is no turning back." Without giving him a single backward glance, she stepped forward and walked away.
Emily's story shows that family shouldn't mean she didn't seek revenge, walked away, and let karma do its job. What would you do? Let me know below, like and subscribe. See ya, Mo. See ya.